Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Build. In this next section of videos we're going to look at some other topics. Previously we've been covering the creation of an exterior area, and if you can look back at the last dozen or so videos I've made, they generally covered that process. The area in question, the sort of seaside town we're making, we are going to return to that area in the future when we start to add content to that actual area. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look into conversations and just sort of the anatomy of a conversation, what that consists of. So I'm not going to sit here and sort of type out a whole conversation. I mean, we could maybe do that another day, but what I want to do now is just open up a conversation that I've finished and just look at some of the characteristics of that and how I got to certain points in that, how I got it put together. So I'm going to go over to my campaign conversations, I think, or no, my regular conversations, and it's a conversation with the creature we made in the early videos called Brandir. I'll have to find all the video links for this. And as you can see, all I did, if I close that again because it's not very helpful if I just open things and explain things. So in your left hand pane, so you've got these, I mean in my left hand anyway, I don't know how yours is arranged, but in your sort of module or area contents list, you can go look at what areas you have open, all the conversations you have specific to the module, any scripts specific to the module, and then campaign conversations which are available to all modules in a campaign. So a campaign being a collection of modules which share resources. So these are available in any module that I wish to connect to the Moonstone campaign. So these are things like my crafting systems here. And then obviously campaign scripts, again, I mean, mainly consists of my crafting system, tends to live in here, or any script that I'm going to require in any module I'm working on. But anyway, we're going to go to just conversations for this module, and we're opening Brandir's conversation in a sea cave. So there we go. It's me not rushing through it now. I'm just going to cut that down there. And this is generally what you'll see in a conversation editor. And to start with, a red line means it is spoken by a non-player character. Blue is the player options to respond. What I'm going to do, I'm going to collapse this conversation. So every conversation starts at root, which is the beginning. So you click on the plus, and then that's the first thing that will be said when the conversation starts by the NPC. And in this case, it's kind of like a narrator, a description. I mean, everyone has a different style of writing their conversations. I suppose it depends on the type of module I'm making. I mean, for this one and others, I generally have like a narrator style piece in areas of conversation, normally on the first line or something like that. But you could handle things like this maybe on descriptions or in other ways as well. But that's how I've generally done that. So, opening line, the text of your conversation, you just type in this box here, and in this box you have, I mean, there's language if you, but I said I only really use English. I'm not really familiar with how to utilize the other languages. I suppose I'm going to just experiment here. Yeah, so you can have a French one. So if someone's pardon me, if the game identifies that you're using a French client, for example, or a German client, then as a builder, if you happen to be able to translate it, you can type in the French version or whatever, and it will display the correct language version for the player. That's about as much as I know. So obviously it's in English. So you have the line for the NPC and all the text in there, and then this little checkbox here allows you to insert sort of variables in the conversation. So if, for example, you want the NPC to greet your character by their gender, for example, so let's just add it on the bottom here. Well, oh dear, well met. I'm not doing very well this morning, am I? Well met, and we want it to be sir or madam, for example. So and that's the, you know, the game needs to know what gender your character is. So with the drop down box, look for, there's various different types here, and they're mostly gender based, but there are other things like time, that kind of thing. So you want to say good morning, good evening, it can find the time. But yeah, sir, madam, there we go. You've got lowercase or uppercase, so you just select what you want and then insert. And as you can see now in that box, the game will find out if your character is male or female, and it will present the sir or the madam as appropriate when the player is reading that. So it's just a nice way of adding different touches, but obviously there's other things on the list here when you look at it. The alignment, so it'll find out if you're good or evil, but I don't really use that. Boy or girl, yeah, again gender based. Brother, sister, again that gender based. So if it's in sort of a if you're in an environment where people might address each other as brother this or sister that, find out their class. So I know it's nice to meet another class like yourself, how that would come in conversation. Day or night, so they would obviously looking to say good day, good night if you're, as a parting comment perhaps. Deity, if you're utilising deities, they can identify that. Then player name, that's obviously a common one. So greetings. My spelling is awful today, isn't it? Greetings, first name. So greetings, Kevin. There we go, something like that. I think you're probably getting the idea now. Game month, game time, game year. So yeah, more gender, lad, lass, more of that. The last name of the character, if that's worth doing. You can get your character level. I don't know what that might be needed for. I suppose if it's sort of a technical conversation, I know you get these character building modules, things like that. They might be useful for that. You are currently level 15, or so, I don't know. Lord, lady. So quarter day, that's a very good one. So the opening line might be good to you. So good morning to you, good evening. So it will take the daytime schedule for you and give you that. And now there's some other ones that are quite handy if you want certain parts of the text in your conversations highlighted. Things like start action or start check can be very useful. Start action will highlight the encased text in green. Start check will highlight the encased text in red. So if I just open the conversation briefly and show you, I'm just going to expand all. That's what these buttons here. So collapse all will shut down the conversation to root. Expand all will open the entire conversation to all branches. But I just want to show you where some highlighting may have taken place. In fact, I am making a mistake here because this is probably not the right conversation to do it in. So I'm going to open another one. So you can have multiple conversations open, or I did simply clicked on the other conversation I wanted, shipwreck craft. As you can see in this conversation, there's a start check here for the craft weapon skill. So what will happen in that is the word craft weapon DC 10 will be in red, and then after that it's just in regular text colour there, and then I have a start action to follow that if the check was successful. So this start action success will be in green, and then it's carries on normally with normal coloured text there. So I'll give you an example here. Again, we could add it onto here if we wanted to. We're going to say we're going to do a skill check, for example, for diplomacy. So I would go start check, insert start check, then type what you want in. So diplomacy. And I often, I do like to just get the DCs in, and we're going to say DC 14, and then once you've got all the text in that you want for that, you need to go to /start, and that basically means it will end that text colouring there. After that, knock in a space and just type in everything you want. I don't know, I demand a lower price. And there you go. So in game then, when the player reads that, it'll highlight the fact at the start of the line that it's a diplomacy check with a DC of 14 in green, and then the blue text for the player response will follow that. And it's exactly the same with start action. So if we want to start an action, so it's not so the player says it's something that they're going to do, or we're giving an implication of what's going to happen. Start action, and we might say climb the rope. So I don't know, you find a rope hanging from somewhere and there's a possibility to climb up. So rather than maybe having a player saying I want to climb the rope, we could just put in start action, climb the rope, and it just, I don't know, to me, a slight OCD maybe that I have, it's just sums that up. So there you go, start action, your text, /start to close off the colour, and there you go. So that's what an explanation of how those work. So I'm going to collapse all again. I have a bit of a cough today. So we've covered this little area here. On here you also have things like body animations and facial animations. Facial animations handy, certainly if you want sort of lip-synced characters. I think you can get. I haven't really used this very much, to be honest, but I am trying to get lip-synced speakers into my work. But I'm more interested in body animations. So in this case, because it's like a narrator sort of line, there isn't actually a creature speaking this line, so the body animations don't really come into it so much. But as you can see, you can choose from quite a, I'm going to expand this a bit, quite a lengthy list there of body animations, which hopefully might come in to near to what you want. See, there's quite a few dancing and all kinds of things. Okay, and then to this side you've also got a choice of who in the conversation you're going to animate. Now every conversation when you create it will only start with two creature tags, so the tag of the creature that's going to be animated. However, you can add more, because if the conversation is between more than just the owning NPC and the player, you say there's several others involved, all you need to do is add their tags into here. So we've got owner and player. So say we're going to add a new tag, we're going to have Kev's going to be involved in the conversation, and we're going to have Sophie involved in the conversation. So all we do then is, if it was a cutscene style conversation where you're going to have these other people in camera view, and maybe owner says something funny, and we want player Kev and Sophie to chuckle at the same time, then we can get them to do that. So Sophie is going to chuckle. If there's a star now, as you can see there next to their name, it means they've been assigned a body animation. So Kev is going to chuckle, and player is going to chuckle as well. And then owner could be, I don't know if they're going to be telling their funny joke, maybe they're going to do a talk normal, for example, so their head will bob a bit, it's just that they're talking. And that way, you know, on that line there, everyone has been assigned an animation. Now you might not always want to or need to apply a body animation to them, but I certainly find in conversations where there are multiple people involved, it can be sometimes quite hard to tell who's talking, depending on the kind of camera angle that you're going for. So that's something to bear in mind. As it stands, I don't want. It's easy to remove these people. Just remove the tag. Yeah, we're going to remove Sophie from that. Yes, and we're going to remove Kev from that. And we don't want anyone. I think we'll just get them talking normally on that one. Don't want to mess up a conversation I've got already. Right. Okay, So that's what that bit is. It's like a very fast way of assigning animations, because it can also be done via a different tab, the node, but we'll come to that shortly. When your conversation is open, you also have its properties on the right hand side here. So that's the name of the conversation, MSCK Brandir, and we have, in the preview won't do anything for you. The properties window has a few options. Default TGA I don't think does anything, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Delay per conversation entry and delay per conversation reply, again I don't use them because I can specify some of that in the node tab, which is very important. I'll come to that shortly. Multiplayer cutscene, as it describes here, it determines if the players will be able to control their character during the conversation. Setting to true will disable players from controlling their character. False will allow the player to interact normally while the conversation is up. I just about always tick that, because in the middle of a conversation we don't need the character running around or anything in the game being disturbed while that's going on. So I always have that ticked on. And then another option which is quite significant is if you want this conversation to be a Neverwinter Nights 1 style dialogue. Now if you're not familiar with Neverwinter Nights 1, there were no cutscene style conversations in Neverwinter Nights 1. It was very much the sort of the small text window with the speech and the player responses listed down, so all in a little window rather than taking over the screen. If you tick that, it will be that conversation style I just described. It won't be a cinematic style one. If you turn it off, it will use the Neverwinter Nights 2 cinematic conversation, so it will take up the whole screen, usually with black bars to the top and bottom, and then enables you to have camera shots and specific things like that. And generally, people have mixed feelings on how cutscene conversations fit in. Some people just downright don't like them, some people love them and exclusively use them, and some people use a bit of both. I'm in the camp of both. I will generally use cutscene conversations for significant parts of the story. Conversations, say, with primary characters, so protagonists, antagonists, and then anything of a minor role I will run in a Neverwinter Nights 1 style dialogue. But yeah, if I need anything specific to happen though, I will also use the cutscene style for that. If I need a shot of something while the conversation's going, so it's just a question of role. So I'm all for both used in the right time. Override XML, I'm not sure entirely what that does, but if it's XML, that might suggest it's to do with changing the interface perhaps of the conversation, the way it's presented, the screens and that. That's just a guess. Party chat is to do with Storm of Zahir expansion pack, which allowed you to choose on the player response which member of the party is responding to the NPC, which is useful in conversations where there are maybe skill checks or say diplomacy to try and persuade someone or intimidate them, or any kind of a skill check, and then you can choose the most suitable companion maybe to answer that. Or maybe a member of the party has a different type of line response to a question. If you tick party chat, you'll have that ability. If it's false, then it will be as the default Neverwinter Nights 2 works, which is the player character who initiated the conversation. It will be using them throughout. Prevent zoom. What that will do is prevent the camera from zooming in during Neverwinter Nights 1 style dialogue, so it's invalid in this particular conversation. But if I were to make that true, this is a Neverwinter Nights 1 style dialogue now, and I heat that to false, when I click on the NPC or the conversation starts, the camera will zoom in on the two people having the conversation. If I prevent it, camera won't zoom in. But anyway, I'm going to turn that off. Comments purely for your own notes. No one can see any of that, so you might want to say that, I don't know, this needs to happen before this other thing happens, just to kind of keep you organised. if that's needed for you. These two script slots are very useful. So abort conversation script. So this will specify a script that will fire if the conversation terminates before reaching an end dialogue node. Now this is very useful if at the end result of the conversation is that something very specific has to happen to the game state, or a change needs to occur. So if for any reason the conversation fails or doesn't run in its entirety, you can have a script here that will fire if that goes wrong. So what I will tend to do is I'll work out what I want to happen at the end of the conversation, and I'll essentially copy all of those actions into this script here, the abort. And that way, even if something goes wrong that I didn't intend, the player's game is still not disrupted, and all the information is still current. So it's useful for that. So say at the end of this we want a door to be unlocked at the end of the conversation, and for whatever reason we've made a little mistake and the conversation cancels out on the player and shuts off and the door isn't unlocked. With an abort conversation script, I could make another script in here which says unlock that door, and that way it's like a fail-safe. And that's certainly something that can work while you try and find out what's wrong with your thing in the first place. And the end conversation script specifies a script or file when the conversation reaches an end dialogue node. So I don't really use that one, because at my end dialogue node for the end of the conversation, I always, that's usually where I do all my scripts. At the end, I run them all then. But that's entirely up to you. But I've never really used that one. And voiceover, I've never really touched any of this either, because it can all be specified within, and I haven't really done much of voiceover or things like that. Though this little project, we are actually doing some voiceover for it, so maybe we'll look at some of that later. That's one of the more obscure parts of conversations. So I think I've covered the general sort of outlying parts of it, and we can look down in a bit more detail now. We have these 4 tabs at the bottom here of the conversation pane. I'm just going to drop this verify screen down here, I don't need that. So you've got conditions, actions, node, and animations. Animations was the one we already had selected earlier on when I was talking about those. So we're not going to cover animations, we're going to cover conditions, actions, and node. So conditions, you may be on the right lines already, is things that are required for a line of dialogue to appear. And as you can see, there aren't any here, so this conversation will therefore fire regardless of if the player talks to the NPC. However, if I wanted to add a condition, so let's do that by clicking add on this bar of options here. Preview, again, doesn't really do terrible, like it only gives you a list, but we're going to add, and we're going to choose a script, and straight away when you hit the drop down button for script, you'll notice all these GC underscore scripts. Now GC means general check or generic check. So they've been created by Obsidian with the default gain. They're available to everyone, and they list common things you may want to check for in a conversation. So checking that someone's alignment is chaotic, for example, or checking that they have a specific item, or checking a specific level or race. Are they female, for example? That is open, so is that for doors or something? Yeah, so it's an object, like a door, I suppose. Local integers, that's more related to scripting, but it's a very nice way of controlling whether something is true or false. General checking randomness. Skill ranks. Is it knight? Are they male? Is a certain tagged NPC in the party? Are we in combat? Is there an enemy nearby? Do you have a specific feat? All very, very useful. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to check for, as a common one that I use for quest tracking is the journal. General check, journal entry. and we're going to hit refresh. As soon as you've ever signed a script in, hit refresh, and what that will do is it will give you a series of variables to input to make this check specific to what you're looking for. Now there's another box here saying not as well, so we'll come to that in a second, but I'm going to type in a quest. So for the journal entry, this is the tag of the journal entry. So if you're not sure what your quest sort of tag is, just go to view, to journal. My journal is in the campaign folder, and I have two quests currently. I have Q001 and Q002, and what we'll do is we're going to say is, for example, this quest here, Wreck of the Lady Gilwyn, tag Q001. So in the conversation, I'm going to type in here Q001, it's that quest, and the check, if we have a look at this here, there we go. Right, I lost my little preview there. When you click on the thing box, it actually gives you a description, on most of these scripts anyway, of what certain options will do. So this script compares the state of specified journal quests to a check value. So quest tag of the quest to examine on the PC. We've got that. S check is a conditional to check against. So this works the same as it does in local. So basically all it means is it wants to know the state of the quest. So in order for this line to fire, we're going to say we want quest 001 to be at state 1. Notice the entry IDs on here. So if I click on this one here, the ID is 1. So we're going to say that this journal entry must be at state 1 in order for that line to be available, essentially for conversation to start. That's what that will do. Now the not button could mean, if I checked that, would mean in order for this conversation to start, quest 001 must not be at state 1. That's all that means. So that's how you add a condition, and to remove the condition, just simply click remove and it will go off, and that's all fine there. Okay. Actions, similar thing. Actions have a pink background. It's a nice way of differentiating. Green for conditions, actions for sort of pinky red. And there's already an action I've assigned for this. I normally do that on cutscene style conversations. The first line is I will do a general action jump, and what that will do is it just gets the player character standing on the spot I want them standing on at the start of the conversation, because obviously as players we have this freedom of movement and we can approach the conversation area from different directions and things. So all it does, it ensures that they are standing on their mark, basically. So I used an action called GA jump, and it gave me 3 parameters. One was the destination tag, destination being the tag of a waypoint or object to jump to, and string S target is tag of the object to jump. The default is owner, and if it ever says owner, that means the creature who owns the conversation. So in this case it's Brandir, the NPC we made. And float F delay is a delay in seconds before the jump occurs. So I said to jump to this waypoint, jump sea cave player. The target, and this is using a special sort of identifier, was $PC, which stands for the player character. Now how did I know to put in a dollar before and put in PC to identify the player? Well, I'm going to pull up a little script for you now, and it's called general includes aginc underscore param underscore const. So it's basically constant variables or ways of identifying certain things. So I'm going to open a script, and it's a global script because it's available to everywhere. I'm just going to do that again. So script, open, type of script is global, so meaning it's always here, and it's called, oh, got the capitals off, general include underscore param. It's probably there already. There we go. Const. We're going to open that, and this gives you a very helpful guide to identifying people. So constants and structures. This little passage here, as you can see, this is what a script Neverwinter Nights 2 looks like. A very big one. But all we're interested in is the identification. So you might see now straight away, if you want to specify the target as a player character, target PC, it's there in $PC, means the player character speaker. And as you can see, there is what someone's specific mode for multiplayer here. So PC nearest, $PC nearest, $PC leader, $PC speaker. So they're all quite handy ways of identifying someone that maybe it's not quite possible all the time. So this is one way of just getting them if you need to. But yeah, I thought that would just be useful to show you why it has to be $PC. How I know that, it just seems a bit obscure, me just telling you that. So I'll close that off. I'll go back to our conversation here. So that was an action I've added there. And if we wanted to add other actions, say we wanted to give an item to the player, refresh, and we get a few options now. So a template. So what item do you want to give them? Well, let's look at our items list. Go to my campaign folder. Shall we give them a new pair of shoes? We've got quite a few to choose from. Give them a pair of leather boots. The item is called clothing boots 24. So we'll give them boot 24. We'll give them 2 pairs. And do you want all the party members to have one? Oh, why not? But I normally have 0. And as usual with these scripts, just in the bar here, it can give you a description of what the parameters mean. So sTemplate there means the item blueprint resref that I got from there. The integer, which is always a number, a quantity, stack size for the item, or just how many copies, even if it isn't a stackable item. So the boots, the default is always 1. So even if I left that at 0, it would still have given 1. And integer again, all party members. If you put in 1, it means create the item on all player characters in party, but that's really for multiplayer. So either way, that's that. So we'll remove that because this conversation is essentially finished. I don't want to be adding anything like that. Okay, and then next we'll go over to Node, and again you have options for animation for whoever is speaking. So I'm going to link this to this bit down here, speaker. Speaker being tag of the creature speaking this line of dialogue, and it must be a valid non-static object. So you can have the speaker be a placeable object if you want to, but you have to make sure that placeable is not marked as static in order for it to work. Okay, so like I said, animation. So to that speaker you can again use any of the same list of animations, it's just another means of doing it. The camera settings, so if we're going for our camera angles, that kind of thing, that's how we can set that up. We will come back to that. A delay, so minimum amount of time that the node should be displayed before the player can click to get to the next one. So you may be familiar with some conversations where you can just rapidly click the mouse and just sort of bash your way through it to get it out of the way quickly. Now if you're say doing some camera shots of certain things, say you want a shot of a view ahead of the character or something that they're looking at, you're going to want to put a delay on that, because if you leave a blank line that is just a camera shot with a standard delay of 0, that shot will pass you in a blink of an eye. You'll never see it. Normally for camera shots I put in a delay of 5. Now these are not in seconds, unfortunately. It's very fiddly to work out as how long a delay is going to be, but 5 is normally a few seconds. which seems to work for me. But you just have to experiment with that. But certainly, if you're doing little static single shots, go with 5. Quest. I don't really ever use that, but I believe it will advance your journal to where you need to go. So there's my quests are coming up there, Q01, Q002, but I've never really used that. A sound, so a sound you may want to play when this occurs. So up to you entirely. If you have voice acting, that is where you'll want to insert the voiced lines. So this text would be in sound format, someone speaking it. All you do is drop it in there. I'm going to advance the conversation forward slightly because we do have voiceover in this game. The quality of which is entirely down to you, but there are going to be about 3 principal characters in this campaign who will be voiced. So their conversations, we have actually recorded voice for these people. So that was the voiceover for that one. And then a TGA, which an image, I think it's a True Vision Targa file, I think it stands for. And that can be displayed. So if it's a cutscene style conversation, a cinematic, it can display an image over the screen instead. Which I've used generally as a means of changes in the sort of the chapter or the phase of the game. So Act 1, Act 2. It could be the introduction. It could be some module credits. If you want to put some credits at the end of your work, I can show you that in action. Let me see. You've got the intro, and straight away, if I go to node, campaign title image is displayed there, so the player will see that, and I can actually get a little preview. So there's you never get to see all of it, but that shows the image that's being used there. I'll explain some of these bars and things momentarily. No, I don't want to save that. Right. So we've covered those bits there. Now this one here, show once, is kind of useful, but it can be a bit misleading, so it's probably worth me explaining a bit more. I'm just going to go to a line where we've got a series of linked questions. Let's expand all. Right, so we've got a series of questions here. Now each one of these, player in the blue, all these player responses, or the first 3 anyway, are labelled as once per game. So once I've asked the question, who are you again, and I get to the end of that and it comes back to the start again to ask another question, I won't be able to see that line ever again. It will only ever appear once, and that's because I've chosen on show once per game. By default, lines will say always. That is always the default setting. And what that means is, if you have a block of questions that you can ask, and you've asked one question, when you return to the line of questioning, that question will be there again. For example, things that you want to say always. Let's say you visit a shopkeeper and you just want to say, "Let me browse your store." You're always going to want that line to appear. So that's why by default everything says always, unless you specify once per game, or once per conversation, or once per creature that uses this conversation. So you've got some the options to cover it all there. But I only ever really use it as always and once per game. They're the only really ones that I use. And of course you'll be thinking, how did I link all these together? How did I do that? What is this grayed text here? So I'm going to show you now how to create like a question sort of tree. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new conversation. So on my bar here, conversation new. Another way of doing that, if you don't have these this plugin that I'm using, is file new conversation, and just like before, we'll specify what we want it to be. We want it to be Neverwinter Nights 1 style dialogue, maybe, whatever. But we'll know conversation tree. So we'll start by covering how to do that. It's going to be very quick and dirty. I'm not going to go on and on about it. So we're going to call this I have told you some stuff. Okay, so this is the NPC. I have told you some stuff. So story, filler, put in what you need to put in. And you're going to have 4 questions relating to that. So we're going to say question 1. And I could do actually that way, but if you want to quickly just get the player nodes in, I just copy and we'll paste and we'll paste and paste again. That gives us 4. Then we'll change these to 2, 3 and 4. So there's the 4 questions. And in here we'll say answer to Q1, which could go on for several lines. By all means, you just keep going. And we'll just paste that into these. Answer to question 2, answer to question 3, and the answer to question 4. Okay, now then, so as it stands at the minute, if I want to ask question number 1, I'll get the answer to question number 1, but then the dialogue is just going to terminate and end there, or continue down if need be, but I will not be able to ask question 2, 3 and 4. Say we wanted the player to be able to ask all these questions. How do we do that? This is where we can do linking, and that is what that sort of grey faded sort of text is for. So say after question 1 we want to return to ask more questions. All I do is I highlight the player response in blue, question 2, right click, set link destination. Click on that. At the end of question 1, so the answer, right click on the NPC response and we'll insert the link, and there's question 2. So I get my answer to question 1, it will immediately go to question 2 as a player response option. I'm going to do the same now with question 3, set destination and insert. Question 4, set destination and insert. So now question 1 we have the ability to ask question 2, 3 and 4. Now the next part of that is to do with the display the show once option. Once we've got the answer to our question, do we really need the player to be able to ask the same question again? It might just confuse them, it might be annoying, and it just feels like you're going round and round and round. I know it can be a bit immersion breaking for me, certainly, if I suddenly find I'm able to ask the same question over and over again. It just feels like, didn't we just talk about this? So what we're going to do is on each one, question 1, show once per game, set that. And again, question 2, once per game. We'll do that with question 3, and we'll do that with question 4, once per game. So even though they are linked in here, say I've already asked question 3, then question 3 will not show on this link list, it will be gone. So only the remaining questions will ever show, which is a nice way of keeping your conversations nice and tidy. So I'm going to set link destination question 1, plug it into question, oh that's the wrong option, insert link there, question 1, we're going to insert question 3, and we're going to insert question 4. On question 3 we're going to insert question 1, we're going to insert question 2, and we're going to insert question 4. And question 4 we want question 1, we want question 2, and we're going to want question number 3. That's all there. Now we have another problem. Once all these questions have been asked and they're off the list, this conversation is going to just shut down. It's going to stop, because where do we go once the questions are answered? So what I tend to do is, after the bit where the line before you're going to be asking the questions, I will add another player response line, and that normally consists of basically it advances the conversation. So you can ask your questions. Once you're done asking questions, or you don't want to ask questions, you can advance the conversation. So I might say let's continue, which means we'll then move past this part of the dialogue, and I'll often put that in green as well. So to do that, at the start of let's continue, drop down list on the text box, look for start action there, and you can do this however you want, but I always put it in green. It kind of makes it clear that green to go, to advance, that will move you onwards. So let's continue. So that's what that will do there. So let's continue, and then the conversation can continue from there. And what I can do as well is I can let that always display, so because you only ever see it once, but we'll set it as a link destination to every single question here. And there we go. So at every point the player now has a means of continuing the conversation, and that's linking in a very, very simplistic way. That is how to link. Now back to our conversation here. I think we're still going through the lists here in the Node tab. So comments, again, useful information for yourself and yourself only. No one can really see any of that. What was this one then? Never really used that. I've always left that alone. The listener, now this is very important, particularly for cinematic style cutscenes, is the listener will always, the speaker will turn to face the listener. So say you've got a conversation between two NPCs, for example, and there's another NPC involved in the conversation. You want to make sure that whoever's speaking, most of the time anyway, is facing their target audience. So you don't want your NPC standing talking to a wall, unless that's something you particularly need to do, but it will just ensure that the participants are all sort of facing in a sensible direction. Voiceover, that's purely just for Obsidian's use mainly, but I mean we can use that too. If we want to record voiceover, it's just a marker to remind us you need to record some voiceover. Doesn't really do anything important, you can leave it. Speaker appearance, that's just used for lip syncing. Never really used that much. Well, I haven't used it at all, if I'm honest. Speaker gender, never really used that. Speaker head variation, never used that. The text, it just copies whatever you've already put in there, so don't worry about that. Voiceover needs to be recorded. Again, it's just purely for your own voice. And then padding, I'm not sure what that does. It doesn't give me a description. I don't know. Never used it. Never had any trouble. That is the basic anatomy of a conversation. That is all there really is in terms of getting going. So I think with what I've told you there, it should be possible to get started. I will quickly go over though some of these little things, these bars you may notice I've got in capitals, and also just some more usage of checks and things. So we're going to go to this line here at let him examine you, and we're going to collapse from here. So let him examine you, and you'll notice now there are, instead of player response options all on the same line, there are 4 possible NPC responses, and this is all based on a check. Now at the start of each line there is a wording in capitals and 2 bars enclosing it. Now in the text box, if I encase a word in bars, so it's usually on my keyboard at least, the bar is you get to it by using Shift on the backslash option. So it's that key there. So all you do is encase what you want in the bars, and the player cannot see that, and that's very useful if just for reminders. So if I with some conversations, what I will normally do is just create all the lines, they'll be blank, but what I'll do is I'll put in bars what's going to happen. So what that means is that on this particular line the NPC is addressing a dwarf only. On this line he's addressing an elf only. On this line it's specific to hobbits, and this line would be specific to humans. And I've done that with the aid of conditions on the tab here to check race. The target $PC being a dwarf. How do I know it's like that? Because once again you click on that and it'll give you a list of valid descriptions for these creatures. Got elf as well. Elf is there. Hobbit, which we just use with halfling, and human. I think enough said there. So that's what these bars I'm using them for. It's just a pointer to me that this is the dwarf line, this is the hobbit line. It allows me to very quickly, when I'm reviewing the conversation or if I'm trying to fix problems, I know immediately what to do. We've got checks for the player name there. Gender check there, man, woman. And that's about it really. So that's all I've really done. If we expand all. So that's conversations in essence. So it's been a very basic look at it. I think what I'd like to do in a future video is show camera control for the cinematic cutscenes, and some few tricks and things you can do with that. But like I said, I've kind of run well over the time I thought I would be, so I'm not going to have time to get that in, because I think the camera one would probably require a bit of in-game introduction and sort of showing both sides, tool set to game, back and forth a lot, so I'm not going to have that chance with this one. As with a lot of things in the tool set, you could probably just start with something basic really and just build on top of that, and you'll pick up new things and learn them as you go along. So I'm going to cut the video in a moment. I did show some of the voiceover earlier, didn't I? Well, there is going to be voiceover in it. On the node tab there you've got the sound again. It's very easy just to get hold of those. You just find the one you want. So MSCK, they're all ones that we've created ourselves, and you can just hit play.
Despite this disaster, you were paid to serve this mission. I trust that you remain committed to its purpose.
So yeah, a very cheap and simple voice acting there, but we thought we'd throw a little bit of voice acting into this project, mainly for a bit of fun, if anything, and it's only for about 3 characters because my vocal range is limited. But it is quite a lot of fun recording your own voices and things. So you know, if you're comfortable with conversations, it's worth thinking about. But like I've said with a lot of things, start with the basics and build your way up from there. So we'll continue with this topic, or maybe something a little different in the next video. So thanks for watching. Please send me any feedback or ideas, share it amongst your friends, and I'll speak to you all again very soon. Thanks for watching.